Imagine launching a business was easy, where AI and automation handle market research, content creation, landing page optimization, and even sales emails, so you can focus on scaling instead of being stuck in manual work. Let me show you exactly how. By the end of this video, you will have a fully automated system that can validate your product idea, analyze competitors, generate marketing content, optimize landing pages, and send AI-driven emails, all on autopilot. Here are the 5 steps. Step 1, validate your product market fit using our first AI automation. Step 2, use an AI competitor analyzer to understand market gaps. Step 3, create marketing content automatically with an AI content generator. Step 4, optimize your landing pages using an AI landing page optimizer. And step 5, set up AI-driven sales emails to convert leads into customers. Without automation, launching a business is overwhelming. Market research is time-consuming. You don't know if your product will sell. Competitor analysis is manual and incomplete. You might miss key opportunities. Content creation is exhausting. You get stuck writing and designing everything. Landing pages don't convert. You waste money on ads with no results. Sales outreach is tedious. You spend hours crafting cold emails with low response rates. So now let's look at each of the automations one by one and see how we can avoid all of these pains and get to the gains. All right, let's start with the first automation, and that is to find out what product to build, who your avatar is, and how to sell the product or what marketing message to use. So we built this automation here, which in the end will result in an email like this, where you see the ideal customer avatar, where you see the top 3 pain points of the customer, the top 3 desires, as well as the marketing messages that you could use for your marketing. And this information is based on a bunch of interviews that I held. So what you can do is you can just record your interviews with Google Meets or any other recording tool. Then once you have the transcript of the conversation, you put it into the automation in here. So inside of this tool called Airtable that we're using. So here you can throw in the transcript. So you drag it in here like so. You give the email address of the interviewee, the name, the company name, the date if you want to. And then you can throw your interview transcript in here. So you can open up the file that was generated from your transcript and then you throw it in here. Okay. And then you store the file. So once you submit, it will be stored in your database. So you will find all of your interviews directly here. These are the different interviews that I had with a few different people. And then once you have 10, 15, 20, you can start evaluating. So what does the evaluation look like? It's basically taking all the details of those interviews and sending them through an automation. Let's look at the automation real quick. So here, this is the automation that we're using. So we're saying whenever we say, let's do the evaluation, which happens when we click into evaluate my interview. So this is the form. When we enter our email address, the automation will be triggered. So we're using Make here. Make is an automation tool that you can use. It's a really powerful SaaS solution. It goes through all the interviews that we did, and then it's going to put all of the interviews together. And then it uses ChatGPT here in order to write up a proper text and finally send you the text via email and store it directly inside of the database as well. So the database that we're using is called Airtable and it stores the data in there for us. Okay, so that's the evaluator. Now, if you're wondering what the mapper looks like, so whenever we are conveying an interview, we need to store the data in a database accordingly. And you can either throw the entire text in, or what you can also have is a very nice breakdown of every single interview. So if we look at our data, we will find that we have all of these columns. So these are columns that are associated with a certain question that I held during the interview. So let's say instead of somebody going in a call with you, you could also just use this form where your target audience is answering all of those questions, and they will be stored in the database. So that's just an alternative way to go about it. And then in the end, you get this amazing result here, right? So we looked at it earlier. So this is absolutely mind-blowing because it really helps you to build a better product. It helps you to understand your target audience better. You all have, well, you directly have information about your ideal customer. So who are the people that you should talk to? What are their roles? In which industries are they? What company size are they working for? What are their responsibilities, their backgrounds, their budget authority, all the important things that are relevant for you when analyzing your, well, when creating your ideal customer avatar. Okay. An avatar is basically like this, this person that you look at as the one who's most likely to purchase your products and most likely to love what you are doing. Okay, so that's number one. So that's our first automation. Without doing the work that we just did, you will not find the right people to sell to. You will not build the right products. You will waste a lot of time, which is why it's so important. If you want to dive deeper into this automation, you can go to our AI Automation Specialist School, join it, and then you will find all the automations that we're looking at in this video directly here. So for example, we have this product research AI template. So that's the template that contains all of these make automations that you're looking at, as well as access to this database so that you can then just copy it and use it for yourself and fill it with your own data and do the research. This is extremely valuable. All right, then let's look at the second automation. All right, so now that you know who your ideal avatar is, the customer that you want to please, the product that they want to have, or you come up with a few products that would be perfect for that avatar, you build out a landing page. And once you're done building the landing page, you need to optimize it. And this is the second automation that we're looking at. So this is the report that this automation will give you. It gives you specific optimization improvements. So what you can do, hero section improvements, benefits and features, how to improve that, how to add, well, what you need to add for example, user testimonials and social proof, then improved design and structure and so forth. So a bunch of really neat landing page optimization tips. And then finally, performance improvements. So these are tips that will help you to make your landing page load faster, which also leads to more conversions, because if your landing page is too slow, people are leaving and they are not buying your product. So that's a second part that is really important. Okay, so how does this well look like? What is this automation looking like? So therefore, we have this other quick little form here where you can enter your username, your email, your website URL, the purpose of your website, the target audience that you're focusing on, and a little description about what you want to do. So once you enter all of this information, obviously the report will be better, because then the AI will understand better what you want to achieve. Okay, so once you submitted this form, this will be stored inside of the Airtable database. Okay, and it will generate a new entry with your website URL that you are analyzing. It creates a screenshot, and then it gives you a analysis result as well as the recommendation based on the website. So what does this look like, this automation? Well, let's check it out. So this is the LP analyzer, the landing page analyzer. So it's a few steps that we do. The moment we submit this form, this automation is triggered. So what's happening? First, we get a record from the database, which contains all the information that we just entered into the form. Then we create an image using this third-party API. So what that does is it takes HTML code. So basically, it's not a programming language, but it's a bit of text that describes your landing page with all of the ins and outs. Okay, and this tool here generates an image out of it. Then we store the image and we get the file that we need in order to send it to ChatGPT. So ChatGPT then analyzes that image in here and gives us a bunch of feedback. So it gives us the feedback that you find in the email here. So this part here, it generates this text. Then we go to the second part, which is parsing. Well, here we're parsing Parsing is a little too complicated to go into depth right now, but basically just make sure that whatever ChatGPT gives us is converted into the right format so that we can store it properly in our database. So then what we do is we make a request. Where do we do that? Well, we do it with Google PageSpeed Online. So this is a tool that allows us to find out how fast our website is and to get all the details about our website. How fast did it load the first pixel? How long did it take to load the entire page? When was the first image ready? And so forth. So that's what this tool does here. Then we take the information, so the output from here, we analyze it with ChatGPT and write a proper text for that as well. We then also store this information, and finally we send out an email with both this information, so whatever the output from here was actually like cleaned up with this, and whatever the output from our ChatGPT from earlier was as well, and we send it out via email. So the email part is right here. So this is the first part, right? And this is the second part. So this is where the second automation came in and did the work for us. So that again is an automation that you will obviously find in here. So this is the landing page analyzer. So in case you're wondering how to analyze a landing page, that is going to be the way to go. And by the way, if you feel like you don't understand anything that is going on and it's way too complicated, you can obviously go ahead and get this. You can obviously also just do this entire masterclass here. So you should finish the masterclass so that you are ready to do all of the other automations, because otherwise it will be very overwhelming. You need to learn what Airtable is and how it works, and you need to learn how Make works. And that's what this masterclass is going to be, the perfect course for you in order to achieve that within just a few weeks. Okay, so that's our landing page analyzer. And now let's go over to the third step. That is to analyze our competition to come up with some other things that we might need to do better in order to sell our product more efficiently. All right, so the third automation is the competitor analysis. So this will help you to find holes in your competition and come up with content for it, or come up with products that will basically fill the gap that the competition has. And that's where this market Edge Insights, that's what we call it, is going to help you with. So it creates this email, but the interesting thing is the PDF that you get. So in this PDF, you get a proper competitor analysis. So let's say I want to compete with Make, then, well, this is what the competitor analysis looks like. And it goes into different areas where it is lacking and where I could go into, and gives me a final conclusion. So how can we build out this automation? What does it look like? Well, therefore, we have another automation here, and this is what the competitor analysis automation looks like. So we start with Typeform. So you need to enter details into a form. You could also use the form in Airtable, but some people just love Typeform. So here you just enter your name, your email address, and the URL that you want to analyze. So the competitor that you want to analyze. So let's say I use my own website. I want to see how I can improve. So that's also another way how you can use it. You can analyze yourself and see what you could do better. So aidennis.com, and let's go. And well, your website's name, AI Dennis. Okay. What's the area of focus? Teaching people how to use AI and AI automation, and we submit the form. So with that, the automation will trigger and it will store something in the database, and then it will create a report for me. So let's look at this automation real quick. So first of all, whenever a Typeform entry was made, we store the data that was entered inside of our Airtable database. And then we do the following. We go to Perplexity AI because this allows us to scrape websites. Scraping websites means basically to analyze a website and see the details of the website. So it goes to the website that we entered into our Typeform. Then we break it down into only the things that we are interested in using this text parser. And we use then ChatGPT in order to make sense of what the analysis was, to make it look nicer and bring it into the right format. And then we create a record out of that as well. So we store whatever came out of Perplexity as well as ChatGPT inside of Airtable. And then what we need to do is we need to create the PDF. So that's where this second part comes in. So this entire bottom part is where the PDF is created and the email is sent out. So we get the record that we just created. So we created a record here with the details about the analysis, right? Then we get this record here and we go through all the details that we found. Then we give these details to ChatGPT to write up the text for the PDF. We bring it into a format that we can store properly. We store the details inside of our database. Then we create a markdown. So this basically just creates HTML code out of the text that we generated in here. Okay. And then at this point, we just go and create a PDF using this PDF co module. So this PDF is then generated, stored inside of OneDrive, and then we need to get it from OneDrive. This is just a OneDrive thing for some reason where you need to store it and then you can retrieve it afterwards. However, once we have that, we are storing the image inside of our database and the PDF, so to speak, inside of our database. And finally, we send out the email. And the email then looks something like this, as we have seen with our report here. All right. So this is a very useful automation for two things, right? First, to analyze your competition, and secondly, to find ways how you can improve yourself and how you can improve your landing page even further in comparison to maybe not just your landing page, but in general, your messaging and your business in general. All right. So that's for part 3. Now let's look at part 4 and the fourth automation. All right. Now that we know what our business is about, what we are offering, what our service or product is, that we have set up a landing page and optimized it, that we checked out the competition and see what they have done or what they are doing. And now it's time to drive traffic to our landing page so that we can start generating leads, so that we can start generating sales as well based on the leads. And therefore, there are multiple different things we could do. One of the strategies is to have a content strategy. And that's what we're going to look at. So we have this automation here, which allows us to create LinkedIn posts. And this automation is basically generating the content ideas, the image for the LinkedIn post, the post itself, and then also is posting it. So let's look at how that works. So the first thing that we have is we have a brand and we have services. So we can set up multiple different brands here. So for example, I have this AI automation specialist brand, which has a brand name, an email, a language. So you can see we can select different languages here and you can add more languages if you want to. You have some details about the brand as well as content guidelines. So how the content should be written and so forth. You could have, for example, a service, let's say a coaching, but then also a product, which is, for example, a course. And you could make sure that each of them is promoted separately. So whenever you are generating ideas, so there's a button here that triggers an automation. When you click that, it will generate an idea based on the service or product that you want to promote. So for example, this one will send to this URL, and this is a description about the product itself. So if you want to know more details about the given product or service, you can open it up like so. And yeah, that's pretty much the service that I want to generate ideas for. So when I click this button here, the automation right here is going to be triggered. So you see, we have in total 5 automations. So this one, the first one is to generate content ideas. Then we create the actual content. Then we can regenerate an image if we're not happy with the image that was generated for us from the get-go. Then here we initiate the content creation, so the actual creation of the content. And finally, we publish the content on LinkedIn. So these are the different automations that we have for that. So let's look at the first one right here. And that's the one to create content. So what that's going to do is the moment that we click on this button, this webhook here will be triggered. Okay. So we obviously need to have an automation for that. So we have this generate idea automation. So when button clicked, a script is executed, and we've looked at that multiple times, right? So that's the script for it. If you want to copy it, you will obviously need to pass in the webhook, and we'll set up the record ID here. And then this automation needs to be turned on and it will be triggered. And this will then run this automation. Okay, so we get a record. So we need details about the brand. We need to know what brand it is. And then based on the brand details, we come up with a content niche, so to speak. So this post here is generating a content niche, or comes up with content, so to speak, for this brand name and description. Okay, and we then parse it so that we get it in a proper format. And then we use whatever the output of that is to actually generate a few content ideas, just one-liners, a few one-liner ideas, so to speak. And once that is done, we store them inside of our database. So we come up with a new idea, we put it into the content idea table. So here we have multiple different tables. Let's look at those. We have our brand assets, our services, our content table or content idea table here, and we have the content data, and finally we have the posts. Okay, so we want to get content ideas, and then once we have the content ideas, we want to create content data, and then finally out of the content data we want to create posts. Okay, so the first automation is creating the content idea. So when I click on this button, it will generate the content idea right here. So for example, AI automation myths busted. So this is an idea where we have the content idea topic. Then we have whether it should be one that generates traffic or one that generates leads. So there are different types of content that you can post on LinkedIn. The ones that are generating traffic don't have any URLs in them, but the ones that are generating leads, those should have a URL to your product or service, for example. Then you can select different image types here. So let's say we want to have a watercolor pixel art for our content. And then this is the idea prompt. Now, obviously we could modify it. This is what brand it is going to be generating the post for, and this is the service that it's going to generate it for. And the service mainly matters when you are selecting leads here, okay, so that it will then send to the URL that you have set up in services. So what should we do next? Well, we can say that I like this idea. So we can set it to good idea. Then this should change to in progress, or to be more specific, generating content. So it starts the automation then to generate content. So let's look at the automation that it starts. It's this one. It's the content creation automation, part 2 out of the 5 that I showed you earlier, right? So it's this one right here. And this automation, what it does is, to really sum it up, it's triggered when we set this here, generate content. So this here is triggered when a record matches condition. So I'm saying inside of the content idea table, when the status is set to good idea, which is inside of this one here. So we have this status, and whenever the status is set to good idea, which we just did from this interface here, then the automation will be triggered. And this will then trigger this webhook. And then we get the content idea from the content data, and we go to Perplexity. So we need to have a running complexity API here. So we get the topic, and we then go ahead and create content. And then we also create the sources, which are the URLs. So that's something that Perplexity offers you when you use it. It's not super consistent. So sometimes it gives you the sources, sometimes it doesn't really properly. So then we use this parser here to parse only the content, and this here to only get the sources, so the URLs. So then we use this here to generate a prompt that we can use in order to generate an image. So this here is generating an image prompt. This here is then actually generating it's parsing to only get the prompt itself. And here we use the prompt to generate an image with DALL-E. Now, obviously, this is the part which you could replace with a better image generator than DALL-E 3. And then finally, we store the generated image as well as the content inside of Airtable. All right. And then once that has happened, this automation went through, we will go over here and we will find our content data. So here, AI myths busted. So this is the watercoloring, so to speak, that was generated for us. Here we can replace the image if you want to, or we can regenerate the image. So once I click on this button, another automation is triggered, which is this one right here. And what it does is it basically goes ahead and, well, in my case, it uses a separate tool. So here I am using Flux in order to generate nicer images, but basically it does the same thing. So once the webhook is triggered, it checks what post this is for. It generates an image prompt. It makes the image prompt cleaner. So only extracts the image prompt from the output of ChatGPT, and then it just goes through creating an image with the Flux, with the API of Flux, to generate more realistic, nicer images. We will see that right here. And this will then replace the image that we have here with a new one that is generated by Flux. And here's the image prompt. So in case we wanted to modify the image prompt, here's the topic. This is the content that was generated for us. And this is the sources, or these are the sources that we have. And then based on all of these details, we can set up whether we want to include the sources in our post or not. Then we want to remove the emojis or not. So this is a little double negation. If you want to change that, you can obviously do that. But basically, we're saying, do we want to have emojis in the post or not? And then once we are happy with the post idea, so to speak, and the post overview, so this is very in-depth. This is not how we're going to post it on LinkedIn. Then we can just say initiate. And what that will do is it will generate a post out of it. So this will then generate a new post for, I think we said for traffic. So here, that we are AI automation myths busted. So this is the post that was created for us. And let's look at our content initiate. So this is the step that was just executed. So there we are. So this webhook here is triggered the moment that our content data is set to initiate. So let's look at the automation. It's this one, initiate post creation. And this will then be triggered when inside of the content data table, the post status is set to initiate. Then this automation will be triggered, just normal code that we have had multiple times before, just a different webhook, right? Specifically this webhook here. And then we get the data from the database. In this case, we get it from the content data. Then we create, or we use this prompt in order to create a nice little post. So a LinkedIn post. Let's look at the actual LinkedIn post, how it's going to look like. So here's the content of the LinkedIn post. Okay, that was generated for us. And now we have this little piece up here. So this is basically where the translation comes in. So what we're saying is if the language was set to English, then we just leave the post as is and store it inside of Airtable. So we create a new record inside of posts. So inside of posts here, these are the post, well, this is the post table. We have the title, we have the content, and then tired of spending hours crafting and so forth. The one that we just created was this debunking AI automation myths. Okay, so this was created for us. Now the status is set to pending by default. And what we're saying is basically based on the language that we set up on brand assets, this one here, based on that, we want to convert or translate it. So we have this filter here, which says if the language is not English, then go translate it. So we're using ChatGPT here again to translate, then translate it into the language at hand. Okay, whatever the selected language in the brand level was. So here, that's the one. Okay, and then we store whatever the translated post was. And then finally, we just need to trigger one more automation, and that is the one to actually publish the post. So here, this automation is really just doing one thing. It is creating the LinkedIn post. So that's the idea behind it. So it gets a few records here whenever the webhook is triggered. When is the webhook triggered? The moment that we go down here and we set to good to go. So when we set the status to good to go, it will publish it directly on LinkedIn. Therefore, obviously, you need to set up your LinkedIn account here. Okay, so you will need to set it up as the connection. You click on file and you get the topic from this Airtable record. So it gets the topic of the post. And here it gets the content of the post. So this is this part right here. And also in 45, it gets the sources. Okay, so if you wanted to add sources or not, that would be then in here. And then you get the actual image as well. So this is where you get the image to then post it or send it to LinkedIn. And then we are updating the record to post it if it worked, and then to done if it worked, and then to error if it didn't work. So this will only be triggered if this one didn't work. And also if this one didn't work, so getting the image, if that didn't work, then we're also setting the value to error. So we're updating the post record to error. That's what you can see here. This is the status error. And the same happens right here as well, where we also set the status to error. All right. And that would be our automation. So once we do that, the post will be posted to LinkedIn. And with that, we can generate content on a daily basis and grow our LinkedIn following, right? And just be consistent. Obviously, we need to make sure that whatever is written here is correct, is sound, fits with our brand, is what we are happy to post, because at the end, when we are standing there with our own name and want to grow on LinkedIn, right? So that would be automation number 4. And now let's look at number 5. All right, so now let's look at part 5, which is to generate sales emails, because you have now collected a bunch of emails through your content. So you got people to your landing page, collected their email addresses by giving them, for example, a lead magnet. We also have an automation for that, by the way. You can get it in the school. So you create a lead magnet, and then you give that lead magnet to your audience. Your audience gives you their email address, and you store the email address, and then you start sending them email. We also have an automation on that, by the way. But then the one that I want to focus on right now is that you want to send out sales emails. And whenever you will have a product that you want to sell. So either you have your product ready or you have your service ready, because you know what exactly your audience wants. And then you create, you use this automation here, which we built a very nice interface for, where you can have your different brands. In my case, I'm just going to focus on one brand. You can add your details about, the language that you want to use. Maybe it's not English, but you want to change that. Then you can give details about your brand, what the content guidelines should be. Then you can generate an email template from here, because you want your emails to look nice. It just generates it with the click of a button. And then you can start generating promotional emails. And there are 5 different types of emails that you can generate in this case that are going to help you sell your product. So the first one is to identify the problem. So let your audience know what the problem is that they actually have, or they will know about their problem, but you make them aware that this problem exists and other people have that problem as well. And then they will understand, actually, I have that problem. So maybe you have a solution. Well, actually, that's where the second email comes in, with the solution introduction, where you are introducing your solution and telling what your benefits are, your unique ones. Then you give some educational content, giving people something useful, something valuable that they can, put action on and do something with. And then you handle their objections. So usually people have a bunch of objections why they don't buy your product, because they don't believe that it can do what it's promising to do, or something like that. So that's where the objection handling email comes in. And finally, you have the scarcity/urgency email, where you say only 10 slots are left, or we only have 20 of the product left for this batch. The next batch will only come in 2 months or whatever. And then you just say, okay, this is or maybe it's just the discount is only available for another day or 2. That's where the scarcity urgency comes in. So you can just click one button and it will generate the email for you. However, you need to select the service that you want to do it for. So there are multiple different services that you can set up, because maybe you have more than one product or service. Maybe you have a product, you have a service, you have another product, another service, and so forth. So for all of those, you can set them up in here, in this interface, where you add a service and you add details, give the name, the description, the URL to the service, and then you can go ahead and check out your promotional emails. So for example, this is the limited spots, transform your workflow with AI automation email that was generated. So you see an image is generated, a subject line, the content for the email, and then this is the email preview. So this is what the email is going to look like in the end. And then when you click on create campaign, and we're just using MailChimp because it's a commonly used email link provider. And then finally, you can decide to either schedule the email or send it directly from this interface. So while you do all of that, a bunch of automations are running in the background, and it's these 4 automations. So the first one that we do is we come up with the automation, so the content idea, so to speak, or we create the content, right? So when we click on the page here inside of brands, we click on this generate promotional email after we have selected one of the sequences. So we start with the first one. So we create the problem identification. Let's say for our AI workflow automation, we click on this, we click on the button. This then generates our first email here. So this is making people aware of their problem. Oh yeah, they're maybe not keeping up, or making people aware that the problem exists for others as well. So they need to get a solution, right? And then in the second email, you introduce the solution. In the third email, you give them some tips, some actionable tips. And in the fourth email, you do the Q&A or the objection handling. And then in the fifth email, that's where you're then finally selling the product. Okay, so act now, start automating. All right, so then these automations go through. I'm just going to go through them really quickly. So what this basically does is it generates the email and it generates an image. Here's where the text is generated. Here's where it goes through all the services to find the service that you want to create the text for. That's the automation number 1. If you want to go in more depth, you should check out the video for it. And then we have the second scenario where we are creating the campaign inside of MailChimp, because in order to send out an email in MailChimp, you first need to have a campaign. So that's what this automation does. Very simple automation, just creates a campaign and stores the campaign ID inside of our database. Then the next automation is creating the image. So it's creating this preview of our email. If we look at our parts here, so when you see this part, so this is the email, right? It writes me the entire email, but we first need to make sure that we generate a preview so we can say whether we want to have the image in there or not, the AI generated image, this one, for example. And if we want to have it, we can just say yes, otherwise no, and we generate the preview. Once we have the preview, then we can create the campaign and then we can send out the email. So that's generating this email preview, which then ends up just being an image here, a PDF that or a PNG that will appear here any moment now. So it took around 5 more seconds, and there we are. This is the email that is generated. Beautiful. So we, for example, just click on create campaign here. This gives us a campaign ID, and it will contain this image for this part for us. So there's the campaign ID. I can go into my campaigns and I will find this campaign that I just generated. Don't miss out, transform, and this is what the email is going to look like then. Okay, so that's the automation right here. So it either generates the image preview with the image, so with the AI generated image that we had up here. So either with this image, that would be the upper branch, or without the image, that would be the lower branch. Each of those is just creating the code, the HTML code, passing it on so that an image can be generated and storing it in the database. And at this point, we can just send out the email, which is this part right here. So send email. So this is where the email is just sent. So it finds out what email we want to send out, and then it either sends it directly. So here it gets the MailChimp campaign, right? So then it either sends it directly or it sends it after the fact. So this one would be whenever we scheduled the email. So let's say we want to send out the email in a few weeks or something like that. So that will help us to just generate a bunch of emails and then send them out, well, one by one, a day at a time, for example. But in order to use the schedule feature, you will need to have a paid MailChimp account. Otherwise, this won't work. Obviously, here you could use any other emailing provider that you have. All right. So that would be automation number 5. All right, and that's it for this video. So I hope you enjoyed it. If you want to get the templates that you found, as well as access to the Airtable database and so forth, you can find the link in the description below, and you can join my school community here. It's the AI automation specialist community, and the price is going up over time. So we are $27, and I'm going to increase it once we hit 50 members. So we are still pretty small. However, I do have a weekly call, so you can jump into it. And now that we are so few members, there's a very high chance that you will get a one-on-one with me, where you can ask all of your most important questions and get some business advice, AI automation feedback or advice, as well as advice on YouTube, LinkedIn, all of the good stuff where I'm successful. Obviously Udemy as well, where I hit 500,000 students recently. So yeah, I'm happy to jump on a call with you and help you out. And with that, I wish you a great day. I would love for you to subscribe to this channel, and see you in the next video.